Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Boom, boom, boom. 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 That boom, boom, boom. That boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Yo.
Welcome to today's History and Government class, Form 4 class. And before we start, you can send us your name and wherever you are watching from using SMS number 21450. Welcome. We are going to look at the First World War. But before we go to that, let's go to the kitchen for a bit, whereby we are going to look at the ingredients of success. We are going to look at the ingredients of success. Today, let's look at making a decision. In order for us to be successful in whatever we are doing in our lives, in our studies, we must make a decision that we want to be successful. Welcome. So in our previous class, we looked at why USA had not entered in the First World War up to the year 1970. So what made USA enter the First World War in the year 1917? One, public pressure on USA to support the Allies. The public, the citizens in USA, they put that pressure on the government, urging them to join in the First World War. Number two, USA entered the First World War in the year 1970 in order for her to protect her business empire, which were in Britain and also in France. So she entered the war on the side of the Allies. Number three, we had the sinking of the Sussex. We had the sinking of a ship that is Sussex, in which it was carrying American passengers to Europe. So we are fighting because of this. USA was angered by this, which was done by the Germany. So USA decided to enter the First World War, decided to enter the First World War. So we are finding that the year 1917 was a very, very decisive year. Was a very, very decisive year for the end of the World War I. Because one, USA, as we have seen, it entered the war, giving the Allies an added advantage. Number two, Russia, another reason which made the year 1917 to be a decisive year for this First World War, is that Russia also withdrew from the war. Russia also withdrew from the war after the revolution. So we are finding that the side of the German was left very, very weak, and we are finding that they were not able to continue fighting, such that we are finding that on November 11th, 1918, Germany sued for peace. Germany sued for peace, and that marked the end of the First World War. And that marked the end of the First World War. And we are finding that the Central Powers were defeated. We are finding that the Central Powers were defeated by the Allied forces. So with that, let's look at why the Allies won the war. Let's look at why the Allies won the war, or why the Central Powers were defeated by the Allied powers. One, we are finding that the Allies, they had very powerful nations on their side. One, the Allies had more manpower, powerful, and more manpower on their side. Manpower on their side. So we are finding that they were supported by over 25 states. They were supported by over 25 states, including their colonies. For example, the British colonies gave a lot of support to the Allies. So this one meant that the Central Powers were outnumbered. It meant that the Central Powers were outnumbered. They were outnumbered. Number two, the Allies, they had more financial and industrial resources. They had more financial and industrial resources. They had more financial and industrial resources, and this one automatically gave them an advantage over the Central Powers. So they had that they had that advantage over the Central Powers because they had more financial and industrial resources, and this was also resulting from them having powerful and more manpower. Number three, they also had more sophisticated weapons. We are finding that the Allies, apart from having the resources, their weapons were sophisticated. That is number three. They had more sophisticated weapons, and we are finding that they had weapons like tanks for fighting, aircrafts, battleships. There were very many and very, very sophisticated. Then number four, the reasons why the Allies won against the Central Powers is that we are finding that they had good political leadership. They had very, very good political leadership when they were fighting. Without good political leadership, without good leaders to guide people in whatever they are doing, it's not easy to be successful. So they had leaders like Lord George. This was the leader of Britain during that time they were fighting. So he led them very, very well during the fighting. Then they also had George. They also had from France, the Allies also had George. The word is on the board. They also had, this was a leader of France during the fighting. So those were two examples of the leaders who are there, and they led the Allies in winning the war. Number five, we are finding that the Allies forces were more united. They were more united when they were fighting. They were very, very united when they were fighting. They are well coordinated. They were well organized. They were well coordinated, and at the same time, they were well organized, unlike the Central Powers. Unlike the Central Powers who are using young and inexperienced people in the fight. Another reason which made the Allies won the war is because of the entry of the USA into First World War. We are finding that when USA came in, and they have not been fighting, the Central Powers were already getting very, very tired. They were already getting very, very tired in the fighting. Then USA entered the war, providing military support. They provided military support. They also provided financial support to the Allies. So the Central Powers did not have a chance. The Central Powers did not have a chance because at that time, they were already very, very weak. They were very, very weak. So we are finding that when the USA entered on the side of the Allies, the Central Powers lost. The Central Powers lost in the war. The Central Powers lost in the war. Then another reason why the Allies won the war, at that particular time, as fate maybe could have it, we had a deadly Spanish flu. There was a deadly Spanish flu, and this one affected the Central Powers forces. It was a flu. They started getting sick, and this affected them and caused very low morale among the fighters. It's caused low morale among the fighters. So with all these, we are fighting that the Central Powers lost the war, and that's why we said that on 1918, Germany sued for peace. We are finding that Germany sued for peace, and that marked the end of the First World War. So how did the world at that time went about now getting the peace? Because when we are looking at this First World War, we say that it was affecting very, very many nations in the world. It was affecting very, very many nations in the world. So when we look at that, we had the peace settlement and the peace treaties being signed. We had the peace settlement and the peace treaties being signed. So let's look at these peace settlement and peace treaties. So we are finding that we had a peace treaty settlement, and also very many, it was not only one, peace treaties and settlement, and we are finding that after Germany now declared that they were defeated on 11th November 1918, we had a conference which was convened in Paris. We had a conference which was convened in Paris, and when it was called, and most of the countries which participated in the First World War attended, we are finding that they came up with the idea of having the peace. So they signed very many treaties, but finally all these treaties which were signed at that particular time between different nations, they came to be referred to as Versailles treaties. They came to be referred to as Versailles. The word is on the board. Versailles peace treaty. Versailles peace treaty. There were more than 8 treaties which were signed, but finally all of them were brought together. And the overall, they were now referred to as Versailles peace treaty, whereby nations now are signing various treaties among various nations were signed. So we added having that. So now our point of interest is this. What was the result of the Versailles peace treaty? What was there in the Versailles peace treaty? 1, Germany was found guilty. Point number 1 is that Germany was found guilty of starting First World War. Germany was found guilty of starting First World War. And because of this, number 2, when it was found guilty of starting First World War, we are finding that it was made to pay. It was made to pay war reparations. It was made to pay war reparations of over 6.5 billion. It was forced to pay war reparations, to pay for the damages which were caused during the war of over 6.5 sterling pounds to the Allies. So when we are saying that Germany was blamed because of starting First World War, then it was made to pay war reparations fees of over 6.5 billion sterling pounds to the Allies, and this was a lot of money. This was a lot of money at that particular time. Then result number 3 is that we are finding that Germany lost her control over all her colonies. Germany lost her control of all her colonies, and these were put under the League of Nations. We are later going to talk about the League of Nations. So Germany lost her colonies. Germany lost all her colonies, and some of them, apart from those who are put under the League of Nations, especially all those which were in Africa, others were taken over by France and British. So we are finding that Germany was very, very bitter. And this one, as we go to the Second World War, we are going to see that it affected now the relationship of Germany with the other nation. Then another result of the Versailles Peace Treaty is that Germany's size was reduced. Another result of the Versailles Peace Treaty is that her size was reduced by 1/8, and also her population was reduced. So we are finding that German size was reduced, whereby some parts of Germany, they were declared independent, so her size was reduced, and also her population was also reduced. Then another result of this treaty is that the treaty prevented possible union. It prevented possible union between Germany and Austria. Austria and Germany, remember that they were fighting on the same side. We say that they were fighting on the same side, but and they wanted to unite. They wanted to unite and make up one nation. But the treaty did not allow this. Then another result of this peace treaty is that it led to the creation of independent states. For example, we had Yugoslavia, which was created. The creation of independent states, we had countries like Yugoslavia, which were created, and also Hungary. So when you hear about some of these countries, you know when they were created. So we had them being created as a result of the peace treaty, which was signed after the end of the Second World War. So those were the result of the peace treaty which was signed. But we are finding that this treaty had its own shortcomings. So what were the shortcomings of the treaty, the Versailles peace treaties? What are some of the shortcomings of the Versailles peace treaty? One, we are finding that the punishment which was given to Germany, we say that one, Germany was blamed for the start of the First World War. Then Germany was fined a lot of money. Then she lost her colonies and such. We have looked at that. So because of this punishment, Germany was very, very bitter. Germany was very, very bitter and very resentful. So this one, we are seeing that it was carried on. when the Second World War started. We are going to look at that. Then the treaty also ignored the interest of colonized people, especially in Africa. Then we are finding that Italy felt that it was not rewarded for late being involved in the war. So Italy was very, very bitter. She felt that she was mistreated by the Allies. We looked at that, and we are finding that Italy was also very, very bitter. So for today, we have been able to look at the second the First World War. We have looked at why USA joined the war, and also we have looked at the results of the peace treaty which was signed and its shortcoming. And in our next class, we are going to continue from there. For any inquiry, you can, or any tip you want to get on the same, you can SMS his 421 126. Thank you.